Put down your pen and take a deep breath. The 2026 English Literature paper is officially over. But was that MCQ section as easy as it looked? Today we aren't just giving you the answer key. We are breaking down the logic behind those tricky 2026 competency-based questions that probably had you stuck between two options. From the critical analysis of treasure chest to the complex arcs in Julius Caesar. Let's find out how many marks you have secured. So, hello guys, welcome back to a new video of SMSA What Disciple, where we break down hard concepts into crystal clear topics. Okay, so as you know, in today's video we'll be discussing the answers for the MCQ section of your English Literature Board Paper 2026, and I'll be explaining the paper pattern of your 2026 English Literature Board pattern. Okay, before starting, make sure you subscribe our channel and join our Telegram channel, whose link I'll provide in the description. Okay, so let's start. So the English Literature Board paper, it mainly consists 4 questions. Okay, so section A, section B, section C and section D. So now section A, it has 16 MCQs. Section B, it has 2 questions, each of 16 marks, which is from your drama section, which is Julius Caesar, and then the other 2 sections are from your treasure chest. One is for your short stories, another is for your poetry section. Okay, so these are the 4 sections from which mainly questions are asked. So section A is mainly 16 marks MCQs. Okay, you'll have 16 MCQs. In section B, you'll have 2 questions, each from your drama section, which is your Julius Caesar part. It could be asked from any of the acts, which is Act 3, Act 4 and Act 5. So from any of these acts, the questions can be asked. Then you have your section C, in which the questions related to your short stories from your treasure chest are asked. So you have 5 short stories and 5 poems, which you have to learn for your board exam. Okay, so now this is your paper pattern mainly. So when I specifically talk about our 2026 English Literature Board paper, so the section B, which is from Julius Caesar, so the questions from which the section B was made of, first question, it had appeared from Act 3 Scene 1, and the second question, it was from Act 5 Scene 3. Okay, so now you can consider that all the acts are important in Julius Caesar, but mainly the most important acts in Julius Caesar is Act 3 and Act 4, because these are the turning points in the play, and you can get they can frame many high logical thinking questions from these parts of the play. So you have to master these 2 acts completely to score good marks in your Julius Caesar. Okay, now when you talk about section C, which is your short stories from treasure chest, so you have 5 short stories, just like I mentioned. So out of those 5 short stories, the ones which had appeared in our paper was The Girl Who Can and The Pedestrian. So these were the 2 short stories. And from your poetry section, the poems which had appeared, the first poem was When Great Trees Fall, and the second poem was The Power of Music. Okay, so when I talk about Julius Caesar, so specifically I am not sure, but there are high chances that Act 3 and Act 4, from these 2 acts, the questions can be framed, because most of the time in every year these 2 acts are the main parts of the play where the questions are framed. Okay, so make sure you learn these topics thoroughly. And as of your treasure chest, so I suggest you not to leave any of the short stories, because it cannot be predicted easily. So just like in our 2026 English paper, so nobody had expected The Girl Who Can to appear, because it had been many years since The Girl Who Can had been appearing. Okay, so The Girl Who Can had not appeared for many years only. So it was completely unexpected for our 2026 batch to see this question in our 2026 paper. Okay, so as of your poetry, you can choose any poem in which you are good at. Okay, so now I'll be giving out the answers for the MCQ section of our literature board paper. Okay, so as that of the first question, so the first question is, what were Julius Caesar's dying words? So the answer for this is, it's actually very easy to guess or easy to answer, because these lines are actually very famous. Even if you search in Google the famous lines of history, so you'll see these words. Okay, so what are these words? So the words which Caesar said before dying were, "Et tu, Brute, then fall Caesar." So the answer for the first question is option B. And then when you talk about the second question, which of the following phrases best describes Antony's mood when he says, "O mighty Caesar, dost thou lie so low? Are all thy conquests, glories, triumphs, spoils, shrunk to this little measure?" So This is actually a quite tricky question, because here the examiners have tried to provide you two more options to confuse the students. So mainly three options are provided here which you should take for consideration. So the first option is frustration and rage, second is your grief and sorrow, and your third is remorse and regret. Okay, so now the main correct answer, the correct answer for this is grief and sorrow. But sometimes students think that remorse and regret could also be the feeling. But here at this particular sentence, when Antony says these lines, he's actually not regretful for anything. Okay, so he's just expressing his sorrow. So the answer for this will be grief and sorrow. Now for question 3, which of the following does Antony not say about Caesar in his funeral speech? So what Antony does not say in Caesar's funeral speech? So Caesar was ambitious and want to be crowned king. So this was the thing which Antony did not mention during Caesar's funeral. Okay, so the answer for the third question is option A. Caesar was ambitious and wanted to be crowned king. Now when you talk about the fourth question, Antony says these many shall die, their names are pricked. So these words reveal that he is, so options are ruthless, anxious, frustrated and angry. So here angry can also be used, but he easily says that these many people should be killed. So it shows that he is ruthless in nature more than angry. So the correct option for your fourth question is option A, which is ruthless. Now for your fifth question, during their quarrel, Brutus says to Cassius, away slight man. Brutus' tone in this above line can be described as, so the answer for your fifth question is option D, dismissive, because when Brutus says to Cassius these lines, so he actually means that he wants to ignore Cassius completely. He does not want to quarrel much with Cassius. Okay, so therefore the answer will be dismissive. Now when you talk about question 6, towards the end of the play, Pindarus reports that Titanus has been captured by enemy troops. What does Cassius do on hearing this news? So we all know that what does Cassius do on hearing this news? So he stabs himself and kills. So option C, he persuades Pindarus to help him take his life. So this will be your correct answer for question 6. Now question 7, what did Martin dislike about the elevator in his apartment building? Now this is also a tricky question, because if you have not read the the particular lines of the chapter, then this question would be quite tricky, because the options are the unpleasant smell, its dirty floor, its small size, the poor ventilation. Okay, so these are the options. So out of all these options, so the unpleasant smell, so it is not mentioned anywhere in the entire story that the unpleasant smell, so you will remove the option unpleasant smell. Now the next option, which is its dirty floor, so in the story they have mentioned the elevator had dirty walls, so there is no mention of dirty floor or anything related to that. So option B also won't be valid. Now option D, which is the poor ventilation, so now this is also not mentioned anywhere in the entire story, so option D also won't be a correct option. So option C, which is its small size, will be correct, because small size is also mentioned in the storyline also. So for your question 7, option C is the correct one. Now your question 8, choose the option that lists the sequence of events from Stephen Leacock's short story with the photographer in the correct order. Now, so let me read out the events. First event, even as he was protesting, the photographer managed to take a candid photograph with which he was very pleased. 2. At the studio, the photographer's criticism of his face made the author feel worthless and unattractive. Event 3, disturbed and upset by the photographer's criticisms and instructions, the author voiced his protest. Now, event 4, the author wanted to have his photographer taken. Okay, so now the correct option for your question 8 is option B, which is 4, 2, 3, 1. So this is your correct chronological order. Okay, so now for your question 9, Nana has many voices. There is a special one she uses to shut everyone up. What do these lines from Ama-Ata Ayudu's short story, The Girl Who Can, tell us about Nana? So what do the above lines which Arjuna state about her Nana's true character? So the option for this is that she dominates the household. Okay, so with her loud voice she dominates the household. She does not allow anyone to talk against her or to raise their voice against her. Okay, so now the next question, that is question 10, what were the people in Mead's neighborhood doing when he was out walking at night? So we all know that they were not reading magazines or talking with each other, so they were just staring at the television screen. So the option for your question 10 is option A, watching television. Now for your question 9, in Alphonse Dauder's short story The Last Lesson, Franz says that all our bad news had come from there. So what does there refer to? So there here, so if you read the story, so you'll get to know that when Franz is going to his school, so he actually passes through the town hall where he sees that the people are gathered in front of the the bulletin board. So there, the word here there refers to the bulletin board. Okay, so for your question 9, the answer will be option B, the bulletin board. Okay, now your question 12, which of the given options contain the figure of speech that appears in the following lines from Longfellow's poem Haunted House? The spirit world around his world of sense floats like an atmosphere. Okay, so the answer for this, so you can actually kind of easily guess it, because here they have used simile. So what is simile? Simile is a figure of speech where comparison is done using two words. One is like, another is or. So if you see in any part of the paraphrase like or, then remember that the figure of speech used is simile. Okay, so the answer for your question 12 will be option D. She sways like a flower in the wind of her song, because there is the use of word like. So that will be your correct option. Now for your question 13, the mood in the poem when great trees fall moves from, that is they are asking the shift from the mood. So the option will be hurt to wonder, because that's how the main story in the poem moves on. Like first the people experience the pain, and then they they rise above the pain and become they overcome that pain. Now question 14, in the poem The Glove and the Lions, King Francis exclaims, rightly done. What action of Count de Loche does he applaud when he says this? So the action which when the king says rightly done, so the action which had happened there was that the Count de Loche, he had grabbed the lady's glove from the arena and quickly leaped in back. So what he did after coming back was that he threw the glove angrily on the lady's face. So this was the action which the king had applauded. So the option for your question 14 will be flinging the glove angrily in the lady's face. So this will be your correct answer. Now for your question 15, select the option that shows the correct relationship between statement 1 and statement 2 based on the poem Considerable Speck. So your statement 1 is, the mite on the paper ran, crept, faltered, hesitated and covered. Statement 2, the poet narrator realized that it was an intelligent living creature. So these are your two statements. So the correct option for this will be option C. Statement 1 is the reason for statement 2, because the poet realized that the thing which he had considered as a speck was actually a living mite when he noticed the movements of that. So statement 1 is the reason for statement 2. That is option C is correct. Now for question 16, Sukumar Ray's poem The Power of Music can be classified as, so the answers for this is actually a nonsense verse, because if you see the treasure chest, at the beginning of the treasure chest, if you see, that is in the author's note, so you will see that the power of music is widely considered as a nonsense verse poem. That means it is basically a poem which is written in which has no sense at all. It is just written in a comedy type tone. Okay, so therefore the answer for question 16 will be option A. If you like this video, then click the like button and leave your opinions in the comment section, and make sure to subscribe our channel and join our Telegram channel. Till there, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.